Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Namaste. Today we are going to discuss on the topic of development of proof of concept, a prototype as well as a business model. So when you actually look at the whole entrepreneurial journey, you can see from the stage of having an idea or having germinating an idea all the way the product goes into the market. There are a lot of stages one is expected to cross or one is expected to navigate, proof of concept, prototype, etc. So let us see what they are and try to understand what is the importance of the POC and the prototype stages here. Mainly, let us take an example of, for example, a emergency drone. You have an idea of creating an emergency drone. That's the idea stage. But when you're talking about a product stage, you're not just talking about the idea, but you're actually looking at, for example, the complete feasibility of it. Are the motor specifications correct? Is the maximum load which can carry? What is the time it is going to take for flying, etc. Similarly, also have to look at the funding related aspects. How do you convince or how do you get the necessary funding which is required to manufacture this component? Or maybe even, for example, aspects related to production. So how do you see essentially what are the various things when you actually need to fabricate them, need to do it at production scale with so many of them. So what are your partners going to be, how are your team going to be, etc. So you see essentially this gap between idea to product is a large gap. Okay, so the having an idea is one thing, but taking all the way to the product has lot more things to be covered and lot more things that we need to look into. So that is where essentially this concept of our proof of concept or prototype comes into the picture. So you see essentially here proof of concept helps us create a basic validation of the idea, a basic testing of the idea, and helps us cover or narrow that gap between idea to the product. Okay, and in this session we'll try to understand what are the various ways of handling or what are the various details of how a proof of concept, etc. is there. So let us try to understand what are the various aspects of it. So we have three things here: proof of concept, POC, prototype, and business model. Typically, the prototype or proof of concept is more about technical feasibility of the idea. A prototype is also usually focused more on the user interface or the user experience of it, and the business model revolves around what is the financial sustainability or financial scalability of the idea in mind. Please note here that POC, prototype, and business model are not exactly same, and there are small differences between them. In the context of this discussion, we'll treat them together as a single bunch, and we'll try to understand their overall role and their overall use in the startup context. So why do you need to validate ideas? Of course, it saves us a lot of time in trying to both remove bad ideas as well as trying to confirm whether the problems we are solving and addressing are they really worth solving or not. We also reduce the risk which is kind of involved in building something which nobody is end of the day going to use, or maybe even sharpen our solution with better insights. So what we are doing with the help of proof of concept and prototype is actually take inputs from the users, inputs from actual end users, and see whether our idea is resonating with these applications and these situations. Firstly, let us look at POC or proof of concept. Proof of concept is more about will it work? Okay, the solution or the idea in mind is it really going to work or not? So typically many times this is a low cost or a quick method to validate our concept or validate our ideas. Take the example of a hyperloop. So is a hyperloop, the concept is fairly understood, etc. But you cannot, before you jump into actually creating a large scale hyperloop transport model, let us say, you have to test it at a basic level, see what are the various nuances related to it. So this example is the picture I am showing here is from the subscale or a small scale hypersonic tube which is created at IIT Madras. So here you are going to test the ideas related to creating a full-fledged hyperloop. So these kind of proof of concepts help you understand what are the various nuances related to our idea and scaling of them. Or even for example, closer home, let us say you are interested in creating a workout tracker. You want to track what is the exercise or what is the workout, what is the walking, etc. you have done. So, and to do that, final product is fine, but even before you actually do that, you try to understand what are the various components which are required to make this such a product. How do you integrate them? How do you do the basic electronics related to them, or the basic Arduino or the basic programming related to them? Creating such a proof of concept will help you understand before you go into a full-fledged model or a full-fledged product for doing it. So similarly, a prototype is a preliminary model of your component. So it is usually created either to gather feedback from the users or also to understand the form or the fit and the manufacturability of various aspects. So you can think of a prototype having four functions: form, appearance related, workflow related, user experience related, or even performance assessment. So if you see, for example, form and appearance, so you want to understand or tell to the user how it feels like. So you have essentially, for example, here a small scale model of a car built using clay modeling. So what you are telling is how is the look and feel of the car you are trying to design. Similarly, it can be also, for example, like a architectural model, the model of a building, which will help you understand how is the lighting, how is the airflow, or how is the look and feel of the building you have in mind. Similarly, sometimes you can also have a prototype just for understanding the workflow of it. For example, this is a very simple basic sketch flow prototype. So what you are doing here is how a graphic user interface or a software app you are creating will feel like from the user perspective. What are the welcome screen, what are the screens which will scroll through in different times for the user, etc. Next application may be, for example, user experience. So you also want to understand what is the user experience. So for example, what you see here is a basic cardboard model of a car. But what we are trying to understand is how is the space between the driver and the steering wheel, or how is the leg space and how comfortable and reachable are the brakes around it, etc. So this kind of a prototype helps you the user give an experience about how his interaction with the device is. Similarly, the next model you are having is that of a prototype mouse. So you see all the electronics are not there. On the left side what you have is a 3D printed mouse. But this helps you essentially at least understand how is the grip going to be, how is the grip movement, and how you can understand how the user feels in trying to navigate or use this computer mouse when he or she is operating it. The next aspect of it is typically about your performance assessment also. So here you have, for example, a wind tunnel model of a, or a flow analysis model of a simple car. So what you are trying to understand is how the air drag on the model is the model aerodynamic, and is the drag less, etc. So you are also trying to understand what is the performance and assessment of the performance of the model. So a prototype can function or can help you All these four aspects, some form of form and appearance, some form of workflow, some form of user experience, or even performance assessment, etc. And depending on the situation or application, you may have a prototype concentrating on each of these aspects. So you have similarly, for example, a prototype trying to understand how a hand moves, a artificial hand moves. Okay, so these are essentially some ideas related to the prototype. Then going into the business model. Business model is more about how you're creating the value or where the value is coming from. So it's not just about the innovation, not just technical, but even from a financial or from a sustainability perspective also. So you're not just sharing ideas, but you're sharing also how it will be making into a viable business, what is your vision of your business about it. Okay, so in short, essentially prototype proves the technical feasibility and usability, whereas a business plan provides the sustainability and the scalability aspects of your idea. So take for example, just illustrating what are the aspects one needs to look at. For example, one is talking about a business plan or a business template. You have three examples. For example, take a case of a Zomato. So what are you selling here? You are selling essentially food delivery, and you are kind of selling listings in the restaurants and the reviews related to that. Who are you selling it to? Mostly urban, and sometimes now it is even many rural and semi-rural application places also, but mostly customers who are interested in seeking delivery solutions as well as more options in it. How are you delivering value to it? You're kind of using probably a mobile app or a website integrated with your delivery logistics. And how do you earn money? This is kind of important part of it. So you have essentially either commissions from the restaurant or the delivery fee, or you may also have some subscription models, some advertisement models, etc. Compare it, for example, with, let us say, a chai wala in our local area. Okay, so where kind of what is the delivery or what are the items they are selling is essentially fresh tea and some snacks, some samosas, etc. And how are they selling it to? They're not using apps, or they're not using necessarily any mobile interfaces, but they're working with the local workers, maybe students, maybe passerbys, nearby residents, etc. And how are they delivering to it? They're more of a over the counter service in a fixed location, etc. And mostly it is direct cash sales or direct phone pay, UPA sales, etc. Now compare it, for example, maybe you are setting up your own lemonade stall in your school or a college premises on some occasional events. So here please remember that although you're also selling lemonade or you're selling some devices, it's mostly acquaintances you're selling, and essentially you're not many times counting the logistics, you're not counting the salaries part of it, or the maintenance fee part of it, etc. So a clear business plan helps you understand that what are my major priorities and how am I going to create user interchange or interact with the users. So what is the role of testing and feedback in refining the prototypes? Essentially what it helps is kind of checks whether the prototype works for the users or not. It also tries to find problems in design and performance early. So kind of, so if you have some idea, but if there are some problems, you try to address them, or you are aware of them much ahead. It also shows how it can be improved and helps them make prototype better step by step. And finally, it is all about giving the confidence to the people. So before you go into the final version, there is a lot of need to interact with the users, interact with even people who are going to fund it, interact with the partners, and give them confidence that look, your solution is going to work and is going to be useful. And a prototype is a very useful step in the process. It helps you kind of give them the necessary exposure and confidence before you actually go into the product. So now I think we have seen what are the various aspects or various advantages of creating a prototype. Now let us also look at kind of how you can build a prototype or how you can make a prototype. So it's not necessary that a prototype should be always very sophisticated, always very hi-fi in nature. You can also build simple prototypes with basic tools, basic gadgets or tools around you. Uh, because the major idea here about a prototype is not the sophistication of it, but your ability to convey your idea to a next person, to the user or the potential manufacturer, etc. Okay, so what you are trying to do is convey your idea, and that can be done in even using some simple tools and simple aspects also. So these are a few examples. So for example, you can start with a simple, what we call as a storyboard prototype. So here what you are doing is kind of just giving the user a feel or a walkthrough of it. How is your, for example, the GUI you are creating going to help the user? Okay, so it need not be a very sophisticated one. You can even create a basic pen paper sketch type of a prototype also. The idea being conveying your concept to the user. Okay, I think that is the primary purpose, and even a simple tool like this can be helpful. You can also think of, for example, creating simple cardboard models. So for example, the one you have is trying to convey how a camera or how a bag or a kind of a shoulder bag is going to look like. Naturally, here the intent is more to give the user a feel of how it feels to use the component, what is the form factor of it. Okay, so there even a simple cardboard model like this can be still very helpful. You can also, for example, use some engineering kits. What you see is a Lego kit model of Mars land rover. Okay, so kind of, I mean, the thing which actually the robot which went into the Mars land rover. This is a miniaturized Lego kit of the same, and you can actually try to understand how a six-legged robot versus a four-legged robot is going to perform, and how, for example, the mounting of your camera or mounting of your moving device, etc., can be also. Okay, so even basic engineering kits can help you understand these nuances and understand refining your idea further. And also you have some examples where you can use 3D printing also. So 3D printing, for example, what you see here is a 3D printed model of a helmet. So how the helmet fits, or what is the space between your mouth, and how is the form factor related to the helmet. So these kind of things also you can create. So you can also use 3D printing in many applications to create a basic model of your prototype in mind. So the whole idea is convey your idea. How do you convey your idea to the user? It can be a simple storyboard, it can be a cardboard model, it can be an engineering kit, it can be a 3D printed model. It may be a lot more sophisticated tools, but the idea is to convey to the user how your product is going to look like, convince the user how it is going to be useful or beneficial to them, etc. And to summarize, I think so. The whole idea here is you're looking at three aspects. The proof of concept is essentially a quick test to see if the idea is actually going to work or not. Then you have a prototype where you kind of have a rough model or a sample of your idea, and you're trying to use this to get perspectives or insights from the users, how it is going to useful to them or how they are going to likely to use them. The third aspect is essentially your business plan, where you're trying to explain also how this simple idea can be converted and become a real big business also. Okay, so if I look at summarizing all this and see how all this is taking into the future, so you see essentially the whole dynamics is changing into the way innovation is understood. So earlier the idea was always that innovation, groundbreaking innovations need to happen in very large, huge R&D setups, maybe DRDO labs, maybe ISRO labs, maybe other IITs, etc. While that is true, today it is also that lot of innovations can happen from small set of individuals also. It need not be large corporations always. It can be even small set of individuals who can come up and do really groundbreaking innovations. And for example, if you see the examples of even what are today big corporations, but what they started, okay, Microsoft or Google or Facebook or Infosys, they all started with a handful of people, maybe just in their college dormitory or in their garage workshop. Essentially, to be an innovator, you don't always necessarily need large institutes or large this thing. Even a simple young school kid can also have a wonderful idea and can be a great innovator. I think that's kind of crucial here. And the one figure you see on the right side is the GDP of India across the years. You see, today the GDP share of India in the world GDP is very small, and I mean it has to be. But it's also true that if you see, it's not that this was always so. Just even 200, 300 years back, you don't even have to go into the reign of Ashoka or Guptas, etc. Even just 200, 300 years back, the share of India's GDP in the world GDP was significant, close to 20-30%. And essentially, this is all coming from manufacturing and innovation, etc. So, if you look at it, essentially, this is not just a possibility, but the need of India, that if India has to become Atmanirbhar, we have to have a lot more manufacturing sector or other sectors booming and things happening in India with Indian ideas, with Indian stakeholders, with Indian students and youth, etc., playing part in it. Okay, and I think that's where all this is coming from. And I hope the journey from innovation to the product with prototype in as an intermediary will be helpful to understand the nuances of it, and at least in a way help in the overall process. I think with that I will end this session. Thank you. Namaste.